Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us here for another episode, wherever in the world you are listening to us from, whatever platform you're listening to us on. As always, thank you guys so much for the support. Thank you for sharing the show. Thank you for sharing the podcast, leaving your suggestions, and tuning into this episode. Those of you who've been listening for a long time know that I love talking to guests about culture and about program building and about the things they do to make their program unique and special and build a great experience for their players. So anytime I have the opportunity to talk to somebody who is passionate about that sort of thing, I jump on that. And I'm very happy to kind of bring that to you again today with my guest who, the way I titled this episode, speaks to the type of culture that they're trying to and probably definitely have established at their school. And so this is going to be a learning experience for me because I'm sure there's going to be some new things that I'm going to pick up on this, and I'm sure you will as well. So if you're a big culture person like me, this will be really cool. If you're new and maybe at a different program than you were the years previous, this would be pretty fun to get some ideas from and just kind of exchange and learn a little bit about this particular program and how they've established the culture that they got. So we're going to jump right into it with Coach Cooper Steele from Clovis High School. Coach, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. Thanks for having me, Coach. I can't wait to talk basketball.
Yeah, let's get right into it, Coach. Let's talk about your journey. Where's the game taking you? Where's your coaching journey taking you? And what were the steps that led you to Clovis?
Yeah, so I was excited to answer this question because it's going to sound like I'm going to go too deep, but I'll make it quick.
All right, let's do it.
So my grandfather was a really highly respected coach here in California. Multiple stops, Fresno State, Santa Barbara City College, and then when I was growing up, he was at Hartnell College, and that's where I grew up, is in that gym, watching him, sitting on that bench, learning the game, being around those guys, and he had such a following of great players and people that I was really lucky to grow up around that. So I was just in the gym my whole life, grew up, and then when I started playing, his son, my uncle D-Ron Carbajal, really taught me the game. And then as soon as I got done playing at Reedley College, I started coaching with D-Ron and just soaked up everything I could. Ended up being his assistant, and we were at Buchanan High School, who's right down the street here, and we won a league championship. And then he ended up having to, or not having to, but he wanted to go coach his son over at Fresno Pacific. So I took over that program at Buchanan, and probably too young. I was 24, and no excuses or anything, but probably wasn't quite ready. We had some good teams. We battled. Really proud of those girls. Really proud of what we did over there. And then that took me. That didn't work out. And Greg Clark, really good friend of mine, was the head coach at Clovis High School, and brought me on. And he really taught me how to be a head coach. I really learned a lot from him on how to kind of be the face of a program, how to communicate with parents and refs and admin, and just learned a ton from him. And then he actually had to step away last October. So I stepped into that role pretty late, right at season time. So that was last year, and now this has been my first full year getting ready for a full season. So here we are.
Yeah, let me ask you about that experience, basically growing up kind of in the gym and growing up surrounded, by coaching a lot. How did that really affect you and your identity and your just style as a coach by just kind of growing up and being around it all the time?
Well, I think the main thing is it was so nice to be around such, good people all the time. And all the coaches I was around, my grandfather, my uncle, my dad coached multiple sports, and my dad was in administration when I was growing up. So we were always around other coaches. I remember being a kid and my dad was an admin, and Vaughn Webb and Vince Wesson were coaching the junior high basketball team. And on that team was just some outstanding players. Deshaun Stevenson was on that 8th grade team
Oh,
who
wow.
played.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like a kid and I sat on that bench, just sitting there. And I didn't know what I was experiencing. Um, but all that kind of those different styles of culture and teaching and learning, I think soaked up. And I had so much I was around that I think it's been really nice over the last few years to try to pick and choose and aim what kind of culture I want to influence on my kids. So just picking up so much from good people and like unfortunately when my grandfather passed, the amount of people that were at and ex-players and ex-coaches and friends that were at that those gatherings, I just realized how lucky I was to be around that.
Yeah, I mean, just to have that experience of kind of seeing, coaching like done the right way and everything, and just see
Right.
like the way it's established, it's like, wow, like this is it's just such an incredible like learning experience. It's so unique, right? That so many, people don't really get that kind of experience. So to have like kind of that unique perspective, no, that's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah,
So
really nice to just pick and choose what I wanted to kind of, without even knowing it, kind
well,
of growing up.
yeah, I mean, and then that's I'm sure maybe a part of it too is you needing to, right? I establish kind of your own personal identity, right? Your
Right.
own culture, and kind of be able to think about like what matters to you, and not and kind of have to balance between, what is it that worked for, people in your family, and things you want to do, versus like what are some things that are probably unique to your own philosophy and your own style. Plus, it's a different age, right? It's a different year, different generation sort of thing. So,
Absolutely.
taking the good part and then also making sure you put your own kind of thing to it, right? Which is probably where the culture part piece comes in as well.
Absolutely.
So I know we're going to spend a lot of time discussing culture and everything like that, and I'm really excited to do so. And I wanted to make sure, though, I did give some specific time for you to talk a little bit about your X's and O's and things that you like to run on the court. So what do you like to do? What type of X's and O's coach, offensively and defensively, would you kind of describe yourself as?
And I think it kind of goes back to everything I've grew up watching is I really, I kind of take pride in our kids' ability to learn the game and play the game off of reads and reactions. Offensively, we run a 5-out, and every play is a reaction. You make a pass, you either set a ball screen away, or cut based off of the defense. And we spend a lot of time working on those reads. We spend a lot of time working on mismatches and how to gain an advantage, where it lies. So hopefully when my kids leave, they really understand the game and understand how to make those decisions on the fly. So offensively, it's a 5-out motion offense, read and react. Defensively, we play straight half court man to man. It's kind of a lost thing
Hmm.
nowadays. It seems like, at least in our area, a lot of pressing, a lot of trapping. But we go straight man to man. We try to find our advantage. We sit down, we guard, and we really feel like that gives us a great chance to win because it's on our shoulders.
Hmm.
If you can stay in front of your man, then we have a good chance to win. If you show good help and you rebound and you work together, you have a great chance to win that game. And offensively, if we get great shots based off of reads, we have a good chance. And we like having, the game on our shoulders, not necessarily like, here's what we're gonna do. If you beat it, we lose. So we're really really working hard. We played up last night in kind of a preseason tournament, and it was fun. We have a long way to go, but we can see the light at the end of the tunnel for sure if we can start making good decisions and stay consistent throughout a game.
Well, you're talking to somebody who loves going man to man, and who loves, like, I am a man to man person. If I could find a way to effectively, and I switch it up sometimes, but just play man to man all the time, and I'm sure I could. Like that's, to me, is perfect. And I think one of the things I've done read and react as well, and 5-out motion. I think one of the things that seems to be kind of a real big advantage to kind of running man to man in the read and react system that you talked about is those players then are probably going to be adept to be able to go to any system if they, are playing at the next level, or they have future aspirations for basketball. If you can do man to man and you can kind of play in a read and react type system, you can probably fit into anything if you play, especially like after high school.
Yeah, that's the goal. And that's what we've experienced so far, and we're proud of that because yeah, we believe that's really the base of the game, right? Or at least we do over here. If you can guard your man, you can probably do a lot of things. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree.
So I titled this from what I believe is how you kind of refer to your culture, the 2484 earn it culture, and it's a cool name. Like I just think it's a cool name, the title of that. So I'm sure some of our listeners are like, what in the world? What does that mean? What is he talking about with that? So let's jump into that, Coach. What does that mean? Where did that term come from? Well, what's been the development of this culture philosophy that you've established?
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. I think our team and our program understands it now, and they've really moved with it. But it's kind of neat to share it, so I'm excited. So it really started with, like I said, that my whole life kind of being around the game. One thing that's really the dilemma that's really bothered me, or not necessarily bothered me, but I've really focused on is how coaches, you know, a lot of coaches say it a different way, but is it the best players are going to play, or is it the people who work the hardest and show up the most? And I think that dilemma has always kind of I've always been real interested in seeing that because you hear coaches say it all the time. Hey, the people who show up all the time, the people who work the hardest, that's who I'm going to play. Is that always true? And I don't think so. And I've been on both sides of it. I played in college when I worked very hard, and I just wasn't good enough to get a lot of court time. My teammates were outstanding. They were great players, and it didn't matter if I worked the hardest. I still did it because I took pride in that. Um, but at some point, the coach is going to put the best players on the court. Now, as a coach, where do you draw that line? And that's always bothered me. So if you're really good, you can just not work hard and cruise, and that's not right either. So really trying to harness that all of that and explain it in a quick way is where this kind of came from. So at last year when like I said, I took over pretty late in October. So I gathered my staff, and at some point, coach, you have to give me a couple minutes just on my staff because my staff is
All right,
unbelievable. And
absolutely.
I believe we could have any motto or culture, and with the people I have around me, we'd make it work because they're amazing. But
Right.
anyways, so we went to breakfast. I brought two players, Devin Miller and Genevieve Tamandong, who have been with me personally. I took over their AAU group when they were in 7th grade, and then they came right up to varsity as freshmen. So they've been right by my side. This is going on 6 years. And we just talked it out. We talked it out. I told them what I was thinking. We had a really great conversation. I think we were there for a few hours. And I kind of had an idea what I was looking for, but they really helped me shape it. So what we came up with was 2484 earn it. So what that means is 24. You have 24 hours in a day to earn your way onto our court, and that includes, how are you being a good person in general? Are you a good student? Are you a good teammate? Are you a good listener? All those things where we can say, and I tell my girls, I will protect you from someone who will ruin our culture. If someone comes in who I don't care how great they are on the court, if they don't earn their way in those 24 hours, if they're not showing up, if they don't have the grades obviously to play, if they're just not a good teammate, they won't make it into our gym. They will not make it onto our program and our practices. And that's where the 24 is. And it's neat because 24 is kind of taken on a life of its own as far as, nutrition. In those 24 hours, are you doing your job to be your best on the court? Are you staying up till 4 a.m. when we have a 6 a.m. practice, and now you're not yourself? So what's really neat is I can look at my players and be like, 24, are you holding up your end of the bargain? And they know what that means. So So that's the 24. You have to earn your way onto our court, and our court is 84 feet. So, and what we say is, if you've earned your way onto that court, now you got to earn everything. Everything is earned on those 84 feet. So, it's a way that I can say all those things I was saying earlier, as far as how do you manage, who gets on the court, or who gets to play. And so in 84 feet, you have to earn it. You want to rebound, you got to block out. You want to steal, you got to jump that passing lane and do it with the right hand, and be in a stance. And, you want a bucket, you got to earn it. And it's been really cool to use that. And what's really nice is, there is nobody is given anything. You could be a senior, you could be 4-year varsity player, you could have, started on JV. You got to earn it now, and you got to earn it in these 84 feet. And you could be a freshman, sophomore. I don't care. If you earn it, you're going to play. So it's been real nice. 24, 84, earn it. Like last year we had a volleyball player come out and play. She is a world-class athlete. She's going to go on a full ride to Arizona for volleyball. She won a state championship in track. She's just an unbelievable athlete, and we got her to play basketball last year. Well, then it kind of comes up. The question is, she hasn't been here for 10 months. How does that work? Well, obviously she's doing her job, in the 24. It's just not in our sport necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she's doing her job. Great player, great person, great athlete. So then we throw her on the court, and now we'll see who's going to earn that spot. Is it this athlete? Her name's Sydney Vanek, by the way. She's unreal. Great kid. Loved coaching her. Or the people who have been there for 12 months. And this is a good way for me to explain that, because it is tough. It is tough when a player goes, Coach, I haven't missed a practice all year. Now it's just, hey, you got to earn it. You got to go beat that person out.
And like, you've earned the opportunity to be on the court, sort of thing. But then you got to earn it once you're there on the court.
Right. Exactly. So it's been really good for us. It's been the kids have really embraced it. It's been awesome.
So
Coach,
let me ask you about that. The buy-in process. So what was that like when you were kind of introducing this and kind of rolling this out to your players? What was the reaction? What was the vibe in the room after you kind of rolled this one out and explained that this was the direction you wanted to go?
Probably a little bit of confusion right away. They're kind of looking at me like, what? But I think where it came to life is when those questions did come up. Like, hey, what can I do to start? You got to earn it. Who are you going to beat out to start? Or am I going to make varsity? Well, we'll see. You got to earn it. There's 10 spots, and we'll see who earns it. And then, we had some situations where players weren't able to get to practice because of grades or other issues. And when the question is, you're not doing your job to get onto the practice, or, hey, can I be on the team even if I didn't do this or that? No, you got to earn your way in here. And the girls really started to embrace it. They really have now. It's big time. So we had a couple cool stories. Kaya Simeon's one of our forward players, and she was asked to train a third grader last year. And on Twitter, she got on, hey, great job, you did good. And she's wearing her big 2484 Earn It shirt. And that's what she tweeted, 2484 Earn It. So I think that moment to me was like, oh man, they're embracing this. They like this. And, like you said earlier, it is a little bit of a cryptic message. So it's neat to where, when these girls put that shirt on, when they talk about it, when they tweet it, they know they're going to get asked questions, and they take pride in answering them.
Yeah.
It's not something where they just put on, family and no one's going to ask. People look at that shirt and they're going to ask you questions. So to even, put that on display shows they're embracing it, especially right now. And then the other cool story, obviously real close to me, is my daughter is in our program on the 7th grade team. And the other day we were somewhere and someone asked me, hey, Coop, what does 2484 mean again? And she took over and answered the question before I could. It was awesome. It was such a neat moment for me. And she went right into it. And that's, aside from being my daughter, that's a seventh grader who's not, she's in our program, but she's not at every practice, so it's trickling down. And yesterday, we went and, like I said, we played up north in Sacramento, and our varsity played, and then our seventh graders played. And most of our varsity sat right there and sat with them, talked to them during the game, sat on the bench with them. I wasn't a part of every conversation, but they had their arms around these kids, talking to them. And I really believe our culture is influencing that. And they are talking about 2484 earning.
Yeah, no, I mean that's when you can get the players talking about it, or you can get people who aren't even in your program, right? Who kind of know about it and can speak about it. It's like, okay, there's that buy-in. And it sounds like that buy-in process came pretty quickly. Like once it was rolled out, and once the players sort of bought in, they seem to jump right on it. And so I wanted to ask out of curiosity, was there moments where as that culture was being established, where it was where you were tested at all, or where it was kind of put to the test whether or not you would follow through on that culture and actually follow through with of what it is that you meant by it?
Yeah, of course. Especially with, like I said, there were questions with the volleyball player, and like, well, we've been working this long, and she hasn't necessarily been here, but that was it. And then once I kind of laid out, this is what we believe in, this is what we do, those questions were kind of answered. And I gotta say, Coach, I'm so lucky to have my kids and the parents in this program, and like I already said, the coaches. We don't get tested a lot on stuff like that, because they are great people, great all around, and they will believe in what we're doing. I'm lucky that they trust what we're doing. I did want to say, I should have answered this in the last question, but I shared with you earlier the pins idea. So we have pins that say 84 that they put on their backpack, and it's kind of like the Ohio State helmet idea a little bit. So every game, if we win, everybody gets a pin. If I write out individual goals for each player before the game, and if you reach your individual goal, you get a pin. And those pins, those goals are never scoring. I've never put, go get 10 points and you get a pin. It's 3 0 boards, 2 steals, 1 charge, stuff like that. So that is where it was really embraced as well. And I have another cool story on that. So at the next day at each practice, I would say, okay, here's our ring ceremony, or pin ceremony, I should say. And I'd give out our pins. Here you go. You reach your goal. You reach your goal. And one of our guards, Alyssa Kim, about the third time, she goes, hold on, coach. She goes, I need to take over this pin ceremony. You're not doing good enough on this speech. And so that it was really funny. So then she would make a big deal about it. I'd like to welcome you all to the pin ceremony of, whatever day it was.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
she was
yeah.
hilarious. And she'd talk about each kid. And that became such a culture builder and such an awesome moment to start every practice, that's where it really took off, I think. And now you got kids walking around with 10, 12 pins on their backpack, loud and proud. People asking, what in the world is that? And they're proud to answer it. And this year, what we just ordered is 24 pins as well. So you do your job in the classroom, or you do something great. I've talked to their teachers. Hey, shoot me a message. They do something great in class. They're helping somebody out. Shoot me a message, and they'll get a 24 pin. So the pins is really where it took off, I should say.
That is so funny. I can just imagine this player just be like, "No, coach, I got this." Yeah, no, you're not doing it. You're not doing it right. Like, oh, okay, fair
Yeah.
enough.
Hey, I stepped aside. She was hilarious. I I could go on about that. She was great.
That is funny. So as this culture's started to work your way into your program, what does that then translate to and look like on the court once the players really started buying in? What did you kind of notice on the court that your players were able to do once that culture was starting to really take hold?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we were able to kind of use this culture and that phrase for is their roles. So like I said, you earn your 84 pin based off your goals. And obviously I'm the one writing the goals. So it's nice to kind of show the players, I don't it's not like every goal is 15 points, 20 points, 10 points. It's, hey, your job is to take a couple charges. And that's what they're looking to do. Obviously, we want to win the game, but secondly, I want to reach my goal. And if everyone reaches their goal based off of what I've written, they're doing their job and it's working really well. So, and I can use it in, we might have a kid who scores the heck out of the ball, but doesn't get a lot of steals or isn't in defensive position a lot. And now I can say you got to get three deflections on defense to reach your goal. And that's what they're working on. So I would say the pins and the goal sheets each game really has helped us define our roles, which then leads to more conversations about how do I get a bigger role? What do I do in the off season to, I'm happy to be our defensive stopper, but I want to put some buckets in there. And so that's what I've seen on the court, reaching their goals, identifying the roles, and then trying to branch out and expand those roles.
So you haven't had a situation where, a player's trying to, reach their goal at all costs, even if it's at the detriment of the team. I mean, if you haven't had that, that's great. If you haven't had that situation, I know some coaches listening might be like, oh man, I might have some players who they might just be so focused on their goal. And even if it isn't exactly what we need at the moment, but that hasn't been a situation you've had, huh?
No. And I've thought about it. That's funny. Like I've honestly thought, if I tell this girl she has to take a charge, but she has 4 fouls and she goes in there trying to take a crazy charge just to reach her goal. I've definitely thought about it, but no, I haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen it, thankfully. Hopefully that one doesn't come back to bite me because, yeah, it's definitely a valid question and concern. But, I think our girls, they understand the goals to win, and they're smart kids. And, we have a great staff who's constantly reminding them, in that situation, hey, you got 4, don't chance it. We can't lose you. So yeah, it's a good question. I've thought about it, but haven't seen it yet.
So far, I haven't had that experience. Hopefully, you don't either. But but like as you mentioned, though, you talked about the fact that it seems that there's been like a great culture and a great group, and it seems like things even prior to your arrival at Clovis seemed like there was a lot of like really good things happening, a lot of really high character individuals there, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, no, that's
Definitely.
awesome. So when I want to kind of specifically ask about when players kind of come to you and ask about like, hey, increasing their role or things that they can do and things that they can work on and things that they can get better at. Oh, I was really curious about what is that conversation like? How do you kind of have that conversation with a player? Do you kind of tell the player about what it is that like you see from them? Do you have like the player come and like bring like certain evidence before that conversation? What's that conversation like when a player's like wondering about wanting to increase their role and wanting to contribute more?
I think the biggest thing and I've found is like you said, to just have a conversation. Just really sit down face to face and talk it out. Be honest with each other. Like I always tell them, I am more than happy to have this conversation. Let's talk it out. It doesn't necessarily mean it will lead to anything, but let's have a conversation. You want to score the ball more, you want to get more shots up. Who are you shooting better than? Because if I have 2, 3 shooters on the court who can really shoot the ball, I don't need a fourth. I need that fourth player to be a rebounder, stopper, move the ball, stuff like that. So, it's just being honest with the player and letting them be honest with you. I think if a player comes to you with fear of, getting in trouble or scolded, then they're not going to be honest. And that's where I've found a little bit of success. I just had I have a senior right now who's one of my favorite kids of all time, and she came to me and we went out to lunch and just, talked it out. And I think we both felt a lot better about it, to where if we're going to reach the goals we want to reach as a team, there are roles. We can't have 5 just spot up shooters. We can't have 5 point guards. We need roles, and talking it out. And hey, you can change your role, but it's going to take a lot of work, and it comes back to earning it. Who are you beating out? How are you going to earn the role of our spot up shooter? What are you doing? How many extra shots are you getting? Because everyone's getting the same amount of reps at practice. So if you're just showing up to practice, how are you earning that role of shooter or point guard or whatever it is? And then that leads to a lot of really good conversations in the off season too. One thing I try to do is really let my staff take on the role of skill training, because it's other eyes, and they get to see it. And we have plenty of opportunities to get in the gym and get better outside of practice. So who have you called this week? How many extra things did you do? And like I said, I believe the 2484 earn it has helped us with that, because that's basically the first question. How are you earning it? You tell me how you're earning that extra time or those extra shots. Don't have me tell you. So just a
Yeah,
conversation.
it's really interesting in my experience that sometimes I think players don't think about the fact that or don't realize it until you have that conversation, that if a player wants to do more or contribute more, then they're also asking for somebody else to like do less.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think that sometimes they don't think about it that way. It's like, well, if you're gonna do
absolutely.
more, that means somebody else isn't. So like you said, like what are you like doing better than, right? Like what are you improving? It's a real quick just side story, and I may have talked about this before. I remember a coach talking about how when they are looking to sub somebody in, when they're looking at their bench and they're looking to put a player in. I remember this coach was trying to tell their players like, hey, like if you want to get in the game and you want to sub for somebody, or if I'm looking to sub in somebody, that means that there's a problem that's on the court, and I'm looking for somebody on my bench to like
Mm.
solve that problem. So what problem are you solving if I put you in the game for somebody else, and something like that. And I thought that was kind of an interesting concept as well. So,
Hey, that's going into the next conversation, coach. I'm taking it.
oh yeah, is it? Yeah,
What
there you go. Feel
what
free
are
to
you
steal it.
solving? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm taking it.
All right, good. I mean, I stole it from somebody, so there you go. Feel free to keep passing it on. Um, I was curious about the 24 part. So was that something that your players kind of understood right away, or is that something that like they that you had to have like more of a deeper conversation in terms of like what it was they were doing in those 24 hours outside of basketball, or is that something that you thought that they kind of picked up on pretty well?
I think they picked up on it well. We did have a lot of long talks about it, and you know what it's really used to say is, who are you outside of the gym, and is that person helping our culture? They really kind of took on more of the, like I said, nutrition, getting enough sleep. They were the ones who kind of came to me with that. I was saying more, you know, hey, if you're a jerk, you don't get to be in. I don't care how good you are. You don't get to be in our program. If you're showing up to practice 1 out of 3 days, you don't get to be a part of this. I will never, you know, sacrifice my values as a coach just for a great player. And that's what it really meant to me. But now they're really taking on that life of so that same player that took over the pin ceremony, we tease her a lot because she's loves to drink her Red Bulls. And we always tell her, hey, 20, you got to drink some water. You got to be hydrated. 24. And we actually say that to each other. She'll have a big water bottle. Hey, 24, coach, I'm doing my job. So it took on pretty quick. And I would say the players took on that 24 part more than I did or my coaches did.
Awesome. Yeah, I because I think that's been a big adjustment. I know, like in talking to some of my players sometimes is realizing that all of the actions that they do are directly affect, what they produce and what they perform on the court, like what they're doing like every hour of the day, what they're doing in the classroom, what their dietary habits are, what even sometimes
Right.
what they're doing in their free time, right? Like all those decisions, for better or for worse, do show up in some form or fashion on the court, even if it's as simple as like being dehydrated, right? Or not getting enough sleep, or not being eligible for grades. And I think that that's a really cool culture piece when players realize that like if you're going to be in a program or represent a team, like you're never not like a basketball player on that team. Everything that you're doing from Saturday night to Tuesday morning is still like a reflection of like what you're doing and what you're doing to make yourself a better player, even if it's not like necessarily basketball related at that moment.
Absolutely. And I think it's our job to, one of the other thing is how to manage your time. And that's part of the 24 also, is even if you're doing a great job, and what these kids do, I mean, with their AP classes and then morning weightlifting and then practice for 2 hours and then what they do is unbelievable. I'm so in awe and respect them for all that. But 24 is part of learning how to do that, and I think they've, like you said, it's not like basketball's 24 hours a day, but the 24 hours a day can affect basketball for sure if you're getting in trouble or not doing your job, like you said. So I agree.
So what do your practices look like, and how do your practices kind of go into the 24/84 culture? What do you kind of see from your culture represented and shown in your practices that you run?
Just a lot of competition type stuff. I think we've done a lot more of that. We got to show who's earning it. Who's winning the blockout drills, who's winning the sprints, who's winning 3-on-3. So this year we're bringing in. I mean, we are most likely going to have 4 freshmen on our varsity team this year, and they're fighting for starting spots. They are. We have an amazing freshman class. We have a freshman point guard who's an absolute phenom, Sadie Sin. Remember that name? You'll see it someday. She's just unbelievable. So putting those situations where 3-on-3, and we've had situations where our 3 freshmen have played 3 upperclassmen in 3-on-3, and they've won, and that falls right into earn it. There are no questions of who's earning that job. I don't care what grade you're in. Who's winning those competitions, and so a lot of competing, and I think a lot of understanding. I think it's helping our kids understand, I gotta win this drill, or I gotta consistently beat somebody out, because if I don't, they're gonna start. And coach believes in putting the people who have earned it on the court.
And so like it seems like it adds like a layer of like really healthy like competition out there. Like nothing is like taken for granted, right? Nothing is like assumed. Like every
Right.
single practice in a sense is like a chance, right? To kind of like show like what you're capable of, and like what you've kind of learned and improved on over the, even if it's the past 24 hours. So like every practice, it seems like, of yours has like a level of like, okay, like there's something I could really show in this practice to like earn some more playing time or earn a spot.
Absolutely. That's the goal. And it seems like it's really going well with that. And like I said, that point guard's most likely going to start at point for us as a freshman. And I don't think there's any questions within those 84 feet as to why. They've seen it, they understand it, and now their job, if they want to take that job, is to take it and earn it.
And so I did want to ask, and it sounds like you said you have a really healthy like culture and a really healthy team environment. So if you not really had to deal with those conversations with players like being confused as to why somebody else got this spot, or somebody else like is in this position, has it been like very like, hey, like this is what it is, like they've shown this, and then the players are good with it?
I'm sure there's a lot of questions. I'm sure that I'm sure they do wonder sometimes, but we haven't had to have too many conversations, because I believe that they know the answer. I really do believe my kids understand what I'm going to say. Like we talked about previous with those conversations of how are you earning it. I do believe my kids, thanks to my staff, I'm sure there's a lot of conversations going on. I don't always get to hear of, this is what you got to do. This is how you win that job. Go do it. So,
Hmm.
and we'll see. We're going to be pretty deep this year. Like 1 through 12 is pretty close. So I'm sure there will be a lot of conversations coming up soon about, how do I mean, just up north yesterday, I was subbing. It was tough. It was, dang, wait, you haven't been in? Dang, you can give us a lot. Wait, I haven't put you in this half? Dang. So I'm sure there will be a lot of those conversations, and I look forward to them. And yeah, I think it's coming, but I think it's in a healthy way. I think it's, like you said, I don't think anybody wants to, you know, look down on anyone. Well, she shouldn't play. I should play. We don't have that, but I got 12 girls who want to start
Yeah.
for sure. And I'm proud of that. That's what I want them to want.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're gonna, in a good way, gonna be having to maybe potentially make some tough decisions or something, and have to, because I mean that's difficult, and to try and really, what's the difference, right, between my number five and number six, or my number six and number seven? Like when you have things that are like that close and that competitive, I'm sure you really have to really think about like what those players have done to earn it. What have those players been doing in those 24 hours? Like it could, I can imagine potentially for you could almost feel like in a certain way that it's almost centimeters or millimeters of difference at that point.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's where that that family feel comes in. Where I think if you're rooting for each other, it's a win-win, and I do believe that's where we're at as a program right now. They all want to start, but I do believe they are happy for each other. They root for each other. Last year we had a game. I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point, where we had just a crazy comeback, and the culture on that bench. I will show future teams forever. I'll just put that video up when we made our run at the end. I mean, we were just jumping around, so happy for each other. People who hadn't been in the game, people who weren't, even dressed out. Um, and as long as that comes first, that's the healthy competition part of it, to where no one's on that bench sulking because I should be in.
Yeah.
It is about us first.
Well, if you wanted to expand on that, you can go ahead and talk about the way that you feel like your culture is really kind of manifested itself in the game, or and like you said, those moments. And if there's more to share, by all means, go ahead, of moments you've seen when you're coaching in a game where you're like, oh, like this is that culture coming through.
Yeah, just I mean, so last year, like I said, I took over pretty late, and we had to try to figure out a lot of things pretty quick, and we had some tough moments early on in the season, some tough games where it just did not look good, and we really didn't have a point guard last year, and I moved our shooting guard to point guard, Devin Miller, one of those girls I talked about earlier who's been with me, and it took her a couple games to get it right, and it took us all the way down into the playoffs, um, where, like I said, we started out struggling, and we ended up making a section championship game, and that game we were down 33-18 late in the third. We just couldn't put the ball in the bucket, and we ended up going on a 34-3 run and taking
Ooh.
a I think it was a 52-36 lead, or something like that. And like I could never explain the culture better than just showing that video. And just I watch that all the time, just to put me in a good mood. Not even to learn anything from that video. Just watching our bench and our coaches high-fiving each other, and players hugging on the bench and kind of dancing around in a respectful way, in pure joy and excitement, and yeah, you could see it all right there, and to win that game, to send us to a section championship, was, like I said, I will show that video to every team. This is the goal, not anything on the court. This right here is our goal, where every time we take a three, there were 12 hands up in the air with three fingers on them. And when that ball went in, they were jumping around, and it was great. And that's really what I've seen from our culture, and our parents, players, coaches, everyone.
And so the parent aspect too, that's a big aspect. I know to coaching, people always, wondering about the best way to include, parents, and make sure that parents are happy and everything like that, of that nature. And it seems like, you speak on it, that the parents were all in, and they bought into it and made sense to them. And are parents seemingly on board with what you're trying to do?
I think so. Yeah, I really believe one of our parents is actually the one who bought all of our pins.
Oh, okay,
Or
there you go.
ordered them all. They and everyone does. They have like yesterday, one of our parents filmed the game and made sure every other parent who wasn't there was on the Facebook Live group. And I was looking at, there was like 20 people watching our September 10th basketball game up in Rockland, California. So I think they're bought in. I really do, and I think they listen to their kids, and they ask them about it. And I think if you asked a random parent, "Hey, what's 2484? What in the world is that?" I'll bet you all of our parents could answer you pretty quick.
I mean, I think there's probably coaches listening right now or who are probably even more impressed about the parent buy-in and the parents being all in on that the more than anything else. I mean, that's when you can get that. I mean, I can imagine you get parents bought in like that. The parents can be the ones, you know, also just like the teammates and just like you as a coach, the parents could be holding their child accountable to that culture as well if they're bought into it.
And that goes back to where I'm so lucky, Coach. I mean, that we're just around good people to where, you know, we could implement a lot of different culture phrases or mottos, and my kids are raised the right way. Um, my parents do the right thing. They have them at practice. You know, it makes it easy when you hold kids accountable when they got to ride to practice every day and they're on time, and you know, it makes it a lot easier in that sense. It makes it to hold them accountable when they're being held accountable at home. And I'm really lucky to be around the parents I'm around.
Excellent. You mentioned it a couple of times, and I want to make sure that you can be intentional about it, about the work that your staff has done. So I want to make sure I designate some time if you want to talk about your staff and the great things it seems that they're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me that time. I have to take this time to talk about them because you know our motto could be whatever you want. It could be grip it and rip it. It could be a golf term, and they would find a way to make it work. It's just really nice to be around. Mark Tom has been with me now for at both schools that I've coached at, kind of my right hand man, and I really look up to him as a person, and we coach really well together, and we hold each other accountable, and we talk things out, and he is so good about buying into what we're doing. It's really nice to have someone who will buy in for 2 hours of practice and then ask me, "Hey, why are we doing this?" You know, like let's do better on this, and then we'll fix it, and then he'll buy in the next day. And I got last year I went out and got two guys like I got the job late. Their names are Mark Ueno and Jeff Arndt, and they are just absolute workers. You know, same kind of thing. They buy in, they ask questions. They're both were outstanding players, and they're letting that filter into our girls, and our girls look up to them as players a ton. They really want to know. Um, they're the kind of skill work guys I talked about, and they really teach our girls how to play and what to do and situational type stuff. And then what I got really lucky. I mentioned him at the very beginning is Deron Carbajal, my uncle,
Mhm.
who I basically learned the game from. So to have him with me on staff, and then his son who played in college, my cousin Jackson Carbajal, to have those two guys around gives us that family feel as well. And like I said, I most of what I believe in the game of basketball comes from Deron. So to have him coaching my team and helping me and talking to me after, and anytime he'll shoot me a text, great job today, proud of you. It goes so far. So I'm so lucky to have the staff I have. I couldn't I couldn't do it without them, and thank you for giving me that time to talk about them. I
Yeah,
appreciate
I
it.
mean, it's just to have a like I, to have the staff who's all in and all on board, right? During practice and in games and when you're in front of everyone, making sure that you're unified and bought in, and then to have that same coach be the one who's gonna pull you aside later and ask some questions or give some like critiques like that. That's the best to me. Like
Yeah.
you have the buy-in, and then also excuse me, also to feel empowered. I think that's a big thing, and I hear that from so many successful coaches who have staffs who feel empowered to offer suggestions and offer some ideas and everything, and feel like their voice is heard. I think that just it seems like that just helps so much in terms of like those coaches buy in your assistants when they know that the things that they say are going to be listened to, and there's going to be a real productive conversation happening about those things.
Well, right. And I mean, what's kind of crazy about us is I'm actually the youngest of the group. So to have the humbleness and the teamwork of, yeah, the young guys in charge is it just shows what kind of people they are. And like I said, humble, and they work together, and it's really neat to for me to have my own role models around me that work with me every
Yeah.
day. I get to be around my role models every single day, and I couldn't ask for anything better than that.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. No, that is awesome. We've touched about this a little bit, but I want to make sure I designated some specific time to that about this culture and what results you have seen in terms of what your players are like off the court. What, if any, changes have you kind of noticed with them in the way that they carry themselves, the way that they kind of present themselves, and the way they just kind of act around school now that they've kind of brought into this culture? I know we have touched upon it a little bit, but I want to make sure I specifically ask about just kind of what you've seen with these players kind of off the court now that they're all in on this culture.
A couple things. I've really seen, like I said, that you put a shirt on that says 2484, you're going to get questions, and the pride of walking around with that and being willing and ready to answer those questions. And hey, I'm a Clovis High girls basketball player, and this is what this means. This is what we're about. To have that confidence and that pride walking around is really neat, and it's really cool to see. And like I said, it went to my own daughter Jillian when she answered that question right away. This is why I'm wearing this shirt.
Mm-hmm.
That, and then I think it's really helped with them holding each other accountable. There's a million conversations going on that never reach us of, you know, well, why is Coach Steele not doing this? Why is Coach Steele not playing me? And I believe they're answering those questions amongst themselves, and they're carrying that with them, and talking to each other about it. And they come into practice ready to go, and they're proud of those pins sitting on their backpack. So I would honestly say it's helped with our confidence. It has really helped us identify who we are as basketball players and who we are as people.
And to follow that up with, I'm going to put you on the spot with this. Do you find yourself personally having to check yourself on this culture, and do you think about like how you personally are holding up to that 2484 culture as well?
Absolutely, Coach. I think I went through a lot of changes last year as far as my demeanor on the court and how I acted, and like I said, those honest conversations. As a coach, you never want to feel questioned, I guess, but the ability to really say, hey, let's sit down and talk. Let's go back to 2484. Let's talk that out. And myself with referees, if I'm not doing my job on that 84 feet and I'm making the referees upset because I'm mad over one play, I'm not doing my job. If I'm not preparing practice that morning, if I don't prepare our kids, and if I've practiced ready to go 10 minutes before we go, I'm not doing our 24 part. I've got to utilize my 24 hours same way they do theirs to make sure we're ready. And
Mm-hmm.
and I honestly, maybe it sounds silly, I do try to live by that.
Yeah.
I really do set up in my classroom in the morning, and where does my time go? How do I manage my time between my teaching and also coaching? And it's just a nice thing to go back to. Usually it's sitting right there on my chest on my shirt, 2484 earn it. So it's easy to remind me. I appreciate that question. I haven't really talked that out, so
Well, I mean,
I appreciate that.
it's one of those things where you have this culture, and I know my players, and they would do this in a nice way, in a funny way. They'd be like, "What about you, coach? What are you doing? What are you doing with your 24 hours? What do you mean you're going out on a Saturday? What is that? What do you earn?" I could just see them like saying something like that. But
Well, so yeah, the other day at practice, we did a charge drill and a loose ball, animal charge drill, and they made me get out there. And they made me take a charge and dive after a loose ball, so they definitely hold me accountable. I told them they had a weird camera angle though, because I didn't look as good as I thought I did on that charge and diving for a loose ball. So I think it was the camera work.
oh yeah, yeah, exactly right. There's some maybe some manipulation with the video probably.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
That's funny. Before we hit our concluding segment, I did want to just ask in a general sense if there's guests or there's people listening who are curious about where to start with culture and where to start looking to build their program or even change their culture. What advice would you give to a coach who's maybe going through that sort of question?
I think the best thing we did was kind of gather up. I grabbed my coaches and I grabbed my captains, the girls I trust and I believe in, and we kind of went into the war room. For us that was breakfast, but like I said, I think we were there for 3 hours, and just listen. Listen to what they have to say. Listen to the girls. Identify that, you're going to make the final decision and you're going to own that. But what's really been neat to us is having something unique to our program. We all want to be a family. We all want to say family at the end of practice. We all want to say all in or our team name. But how can you be unique to make it your own culture? And
Mm-hmm.
that 2484 is like I said, it's taken on a life of its own because it is unique to us. There are people who look at me and say, "Hey, 2484." I don't even know if they know what it means, but they know that's Clovis High girls basketball. They know that. So I would say listen to the people around you, listen to your players. They know that what's going on inside your culture a lot better than we do as coaches, and find something unique and make it yours.
Yeah, and that's funny. I'm just imagining a situation where somebody says 2484 to you, and you're just thinking to yourself, "Do you even know like what that's?" All
So
right, cool.
yeah, I was gonna tell that story. I have to. A buddy of mine who's been my friend forever. My wife and I went to lunch and we saw him, and he honestly basically yelled across the restaurant, "Coop, 2484," and gave me a fist. And I looked at him. You don't know what that means, but he knew Clovis High girls basketball. That's what we believe in.
And
So
and I think that's like the real. To me, I think that is just a super cool feeling as a coach when your program has that recognition and like people know what your program stands for, like outside of the context of the gym or outside of the context of high school, even in the community, to like be like, hey, like like what we represent as a program and everything like that. I mean, that's like transcendent. That goes like
yeah,
so far beyond school that you're like kind of in the community at that point, and you know being able to kind of like highlight your program, just highlight all the cool things that like your players are doing, and just to have that sort of reputation. I mean, especially for you, right? Like you're really stepping in for like a year at this point, knowing
yeah.
like where that's going. And before the last follow-up question before we hit our concluding segment, I was curious about is what do you feel are like your next steps? Where do you feel like you want to go from here? Because this is, I know, kind of just year one and a half. So do you have any future aspirations for the culture, building it or continuing it, or what do you look for as you look towards the future?
Yeah, what's really neat about where we are, in our area, we get to go all the way down to our kindergarten kids. So the way our high schools work is we have a high school and then a feeder junior high and then 7 to 8 feeder elementaries. So we get, I know a lot of coaches don't get that privilege. We get to go all the way down to our kids and they're Clovis High kids, as soon as they're in kindergarten. So really growing that throughout our, you know, we call it our district within our district, it's the Clovis High area. And so just I would love we just had a baby 2 months ago. I can't wait to see her wearing a 2484 earn it onesie,
Oh yeah.
so just and not just to wear the the shirt, but to know what it means.
Yeah.
Like I said, that moment when my daughter answered that question, I'll never forget that moment, because that's blending what I believe in as a coach right into blending it what I believe in as a dad. So that really meant a lot to me, and I hope our players, like I said, Kaya Simeon passing it down to a third grader, um, just to and again, not the t-shirt, but the belief and the
Hmm.
you do your job off the court, you do your job on the court, in simple terms. So that's what I'd like to see. That I would love that. I'd love to hear people saying our phrase.
Awesome. No, that's wonderful. That's such a cool thing to hopefully be able to see it grow, and see how it just continues to just become just part of the vocabulary, right? Just
Yeah.
part of it. That's awesome. Coach, to
Yeah.
wrap up, there's a couple questions I ask every guest, so I'll go ahead and start with the first one here. Thinking back on your coaching career, what is a moment from your career that you think others listening would be able to learn from?
So I talked about this game already last year in the semifinals of our playoffs. Things were just not going well. We actually we're a pretty solid program and team. We scored 0 points in the first quarter of that game. We were down 13-0 to a great opponent, and just being able to calm down, look at what's going on. Our shooter last year, Isabella Boscacci, I think she missed about 3 or 4 threes in the first quarter. And that's what we were trying to do. We're trying to open up our shooter, get her the ball. And it just wasn't dropping. And instead of, benching her or getting upset with refs or, trying to make a point, we just stuck to the game plan, stuck to it. And she ended up hitting 7 threes throughout the game. And that's what won us the game. That's what spurred our comeback. And I do believe in the past for me, there were moments in that game where I would have broken as far as my mentality, where I would have, benched somebody or, been silly and gotten a technical foul just out of frustration,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I've been in those situations and to really calm down. And what I told our girls at one point was, we're getting what we want. It's gonna happen. We're getting what we want. Believe. And I do believe that them seeing me trust in the game plan helped them trust in the game plan. If I, like I said, if I was losing my mind and throwing things or whatever, they're probably like, oh man, this is not gonna go well. But they saw my belief, my coaches standing strong. Here's what we're doing. It's gonna work. It's gonna work, and it did. And I think that, I, let's be honest, those are the games that help culture too.
Put
If we
to the
get
test
bounced,
like that. Yeah.
yeah, if we get bounced early in the playoffs, that's a great slogan, 24-84. But when you can point back to specific moments of, this is where our culture stands, and this is what, that's where things build. So the girls sticking to the plan there, and I think my demeanor, it was certainly new for me, and just kind of being able to look at the offense is working, stick with it, don't panic. I definitely think that was a coaching moment for me that I learned from, at least.
No, that's yeah, like it's awesome. It's awesome to see like as you mentioned, right? Like you have a culture and you're trying to build it and everything's great and everyone's buying in, especially when things are going well. But it's kind of like, okay, what's gonna happen when that first test, that first real test like that, in a playoff type situation, to see everybody sort of stick to like the plan, like you said, and come through that. That's awesome. And I think, like you said, there's nothing better to kind of cement culture than have a situation or a story like that. So
Right.
that's really cool.
Right.
Coach, to wrap up, I do what I call a 60-second soapbox, though. Feel free to go longer. I never time anyone. For you to get out a final message, a closing thought, kind of a final idea, something that you want to go ahead and leave the listeners with. So I'm just going to kind of open up the platform to you, and I'm just going to kind of let you take it from here.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one. As I printed out your questions. I've been looking at them all week, just trying to prepare. But the thing we talked about with our kids recently was, when we run into some trouble, whether it's amongst the players or anything like that, is the thing I try to remind them. And what I really learned from my grandfather as a coach, I would say the number one thing is, who you are on the court is who you're going to be outside of the gym. And I know that that's kind of a broad statement, but if you're the kid who really digs down deep and really finds a way to fight for what you want, that's who you're going to be out there. You're going to get the job you want because you know how to work. I heard one of my former grandfather's players tell me one time, he goes, Coop, he goes, hard work is at basketball. Two a day, 6 a.m. practice where coach is yelling at you and asking you to be better. That's what's hard. Working an overtime shift behind a computer, that's not hard. We've been through hard in the gym, and I believe that the work you put in, or the opposite, if you're the kid who takes shortcuts and doesn't touch the line, I think that's who you're going to be, and you're going to have to figure out a way to not be a person who takes shortcuts at work or in school or in college or in relationships and things like that as parents. I just, it's another thing that we can really talk to our kids about is, who are you on the court? That's who you're going to be out there. And I've had to go through that with my own life. I think I was, I loved the game so much that I always felt like I worked very hard and very fiery, and that got me in trouble. I'd snap back at a coach because I thought what I was doing was right because I was so passionate about it. Well, now I sit here with bosses who I'm like, I think I'm right in this situation. But I've had to learn, can't do that, So it's just something really neat to really say to your kids as a coach. Who are you on the court, and how is that going to translate to who you are outside of the gym and going forward? So I would encourage coaches to kind of have that conversation a little bit, and that's another way you can kind of build a culture. That's something you can start off with, base your culture off of. What are we doing in here? And that's our goal. I hope I have some WNBA players. Probably not. Maybe, I don't know. But what I'm trying to teach them and what our culture is, and that phrase I just used of, who are you in here? That's the goal. That's what we need to teach as coaches and teachers and people, as role models. And that's what I've learned from my role models, and that's what I hope to pass down.
And now I have something I can steal. Now I can take that specific little piece from you. So no, that's great. I really like the wording of that too. And it makes a lot of sense too, right? Like the way that you are on the court, that's going to be probably how you're going to act in the demeanor and everything you're going to carry out into the adult world. So no, I think that's awesome. Coach Steele, I want to thank you for spending some time here talking about your program, talking about all the cool things with the 2484 Earn It culture and the players that you got, your staff, everything, and all the cool stories that you shared. It sounds like you're doing some great work over there, and it sounds like you're only just getting started too. And so it's going to be really cool to follow your journey and see like where this culture, where it leads and where it takes you in the coming years as you continue to kind of build and keep growing your program. So Coach, thank you so much. Best of luck along the way, and thank you so much for sharing everything about your culture with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Coach. I really appreciate you reaching out, and I've listened to a whole bunch of the podcasts since we connected. So really have learned a lot already, and I look forward to continuing to listen. I really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that, and really appreciate all of you listening here to this episode. Thank you so much for listening. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.